We are going to turn to a festival that has kicked off right here in Montreal, the Wildside Theatre Festival, kicking off right now. Now, one of the acts that has come all the way from Ireland, the morning after the night before, it was a big hit at the 2017 Montreal Fringe Festival, and it's back for an encore performance. Now, I'll just give you a couple of the reviews that this piece of theatre received. An inspirational, emotional roller coaster in the quest for equality is what it's been called here in the local press. It is a personal tale of the experience before and after the referendum on marriage equality in Ireland in 2015. Well, Anne Blake joins me in studio. She wrote and she performs in this play, and it is actually based on her own life. Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm very well. It's very nice to meet you.
Thank you, and much likewise.
I think it was probably a little warmer the last time you were in town, if you were here for the Fringe.
Yeah, a couple of degrees, definitely.
And we have sandwiched this with a nice storm that we're just going to roll right over the theatre festival. But this is a city of theatre lovers, very healthy audiences for this kind of performance. I would love to know a little bit about this play.
Sure, okay. Well, the play is, as I said, it's about my own life story. So it looks at my own coming out a little bit later in life, which is its own kind of interesting angle, and then getting engaged and being in a country where marriage wasn't a possibility, and then going into the referendum and looking at that from a personal point of view, but also kind of what happened in the country, and it's fun as well. So it's a lot of, there's a bit of singing and everything in it.
Well, it's certainly there are a lot of comedic moments in this piece, which is so interesting because it was actually a very hard moment in history. Ireland really grappling with itself and some basic historical values, things that had families actually facing off against each other, generations facing off against each other. Why did you decide to approach it from a place of fun and laughter?
Well, I think if you approach heavy material with a light touch, it kind of lands a bit more, and it allows people to digest it and take it on board. Whereas if heaviness is approached with heaviness, it's almost a bit too much to take. And also, I think people just relate well when you're willing to laugh at yourself. I think it's always a healthy approach.
Could you transport me into the story of the play? I know you don't want to give away all of what happens, but is there a moment that you feel that you enjoy performing, for example, because you are in this play that you've written?
Absolutely. I am in it, and I'm in it with a very talented actress called Lucia Smith. She plays everyone else. I play myself, and she, I just stand around playing myself, and she has to play everyone else, including both my parents, bureaucrats, and a few siblings, and my partner, Jenny, as well. She plays all these parts. There's one part, it's a musical moment, which I quite enjoy every night, where it's pretty much a legal document put to music of a list of all the people you cannot be related to if you were to enter into a civil partnership or a marriage with. So all the degrees of relationship that's not possible, which might be slightly different in Canada, but in Ireland, the last line of it, no word of a lie, is there is no legal restriction on first cousins, which I don't think is true here, but apparently in Ireland you can marry your cousin.
You can marry your cousin, but you cannot marry your partner if you're not straight.
Certainly in 2015. In 2015, yeah.
That is an interesting moment. I want to go back there for a second, because this is the trigger for this creative piece here, is that moment in 2015. Do you remember the night of the referendum?
Oh God, absolutely. So it was that feeling kind of, especially the day of the vote, it's that kind of calm of the eye of the storm, where suddenly that's it, nothing else can be done, and there's no campaigning allowed on the day of votes, of any kind of a vote in Ireland. It's illegal, and it was just absolute. We had no idea how it would go. I know it might now seem, well, obviously it was going to pass or whatever, but
no, I do remember that. I mean, it's not that long ago, and I do remember that it was absolutely not clear what way it would go.
Okay, yeah, and we were. I think it was that kind of a feeling like the best way I could put it, we've a really big exam in Ireland, which at the very end of when you're in secondary school or high school, and it kind of a lot of things depend on it. And what it kind of felt like was, it was that exam, but everyone else was taking it for you. You could, there was no control over it. It was like the entire country was sitting this exam for you, and we had no control over what way it would go, apart from the one vote we managed to cast or whoever we managed to speak to. And it was very emotional. It was quite very trying. And we were all kind of put through an emotional ringer, which I like to get a flavour of that in the show, but it doesn't dwell on that too much, because it's kind of implicit.
Well, it's an amazing thing to do, to be able to sing and dance about a moment in history that had so many people in a deep conversation with themselves about what political values were going to be when it comes to family structures and family values. Really, it's a very interesting moment in time. Here in Canada, obviously, that whole legislation happened very differently, and you'll have people in audience who were able to get married or have civil partnerships that were recognized by the government much, much earlier. So what's the reaction from an audience that's mixed like that?
It's interesting because bringing it to Canada in the summer, I wasn't sure, because obviously in an Irish audience, it's very recent history. Everyone kind of remembers where they were that day. And so I really wasn't sure how it would translate to Canadian audiences. But and what I wanted to do as well was, well, you weren't there on that day, but this show was a little bit of access to that, a little bit of access to that magic, a little taster of what it was like. And people did come up to me afterwards and say that they really got a sense of that moment, and it was lovely. I met some Irish people came to the show and said, "Oh,
is that right? That's interesting." So Irish people who are living here were here for the arts festival, and they came and watched the show about this moment in their own history. And what was that like?
Well, they just said, thanks for picturing for capturing, a day that I was proudest ever to be Irish," and that's a beautiful compliment, I suppose.
You clearly have a wonderful relationship. We heard a clip at the top of our show of you and your the other actor who's on stage with you, and you are having a lot of fun. The two of you really seem to have a great relationship, and that must help a lot as she is depicting, as you said, people from your life. It's one thing to be negotiating those artistic relationships when things are fictional, but she actually has to play your parents.
I know.
Your parents. How did you teach someone who was not in your family to be your parents?
Well, I think it's a real thing with any kind of art form, and especially acting. It's really about presence and openness. And Lucia is an incredibly talented, a very generous performer. And she just, I wrote the script and she'd read it and she'd deliver it, and we had a wonderful director, Paul Mead, as well. And, she was just very present to what was on the page. And she knows my parents as well. And she does a wonderful job of facilitating the show, to the point that there were some people I remember at one point when we had done it in Ireland, and someone said, they met her and said, have you seen Anne's show? And she went, I'm in it. And said, no, it's a one-woman show. And she's so amazing that some people have seen the show and
don't even register her. She's just a mirror.
But interesting. That's a compliment to an actor, not that she's not. Can I qualify that? Like, that's a sign of an incredible actor.
How did your parents respond to the show?
That's an interesting question too, because they feature in it as you said, families struggling. My family very much struggled, and I wasn't sure how they would take it. And I let them read any script that involved them. I kind of gave them a veto if they wanted, and they gave it the green light, thankfully. And they came to it. They've seen it 4 times now, I think, and they bring their friends.
Wow.
And they tell people to go, and they're just they're incredibly supportive. They've always been incredibly supportive of me artistically, and whatever struggles we've had along the way with my sexuality, when it comes down to it, they're really amazing human beings.
Well, it's such a pleasure to meet you. Break a leg this evening.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
I've been speaking with Anne Blake. She performs in The Morning After the Life Before. That's at the Wildside Theatre Festival this evening. The show is at 7 p.m. at the Centaur Theatre, and it is, there are a lot of tickets that are already gone, but you might still squeeze one out at $13. And tickets are on sale. You can actually find ticket sales online.